Hello people, this is Payal Verma. So today in this chapter we are going to read about contemporary South Asia. So first of all we need to know about the word contemporary. The word contemporary means modern and that is the period after 1991. So the overview of this chapter says that what we are going to learn in this chapter. First is the developments in our own region, that is South Asia. In this chapter we are going to learn only about South Asia, which comprises of countries including India and its 7 neighbors. We'll read about it in detail. This region suddenly became the focus of global attention. How this region became a center of global attention, we'll read about it. We'll read about the disputes, conflicts, and ethnic strife and resource sharings in these countries. We'll also read about the nature of conflict and cooperation among different countries of this region. And lastly, we'll read about the domestic politics of some big countries of this region like India. So, starting the chapter, we look at what is South Asia. We are familiar with the crippling tension during an India-Pakistan cricket match, right? Now, we have also seen the goodwill and hospitality shown to visiting Indian and Pakistani fans by their hosts when they come to watch a cricket match. That is really true. This is a symbolic of a large pattern of South Asian affairs. Ours is a region where rivalry and goodwill, hope and despair, mutual suspicion and trust coexist. Let us begin by asking elementary question. Now this is a very important question, that is, what is South Asia? The expression South Asia especially includes the following countries, that is Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. The mighty Himalayas in the north and the vast Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal in the south, west and east respectively, provide a natural insularity to the region. That means there is a natural insularity in the region which makes it and to be called it the Indian subcontinent. Now why is it called the Indian subcontinent? Because India is the largest country and all those countries are neighbors of India. Now, Afghanistan and Myanmar are often included in discussions of the region as a whole. China is an important player but is not considered to be a part of this region. This is very important, that China is not a part of South Asian region. Now, South Asia stands for diversity in every sense and yet constitutes one geological space. Sri Lanka and India have successfully operated a democratic system since their independence from the British. Pakistan and Bangladesh have experienced both civilian and military rules. Bangladesh remaining a democracy in the post-Cold War period, Pakistan began the post-Cold War period with successive democratic governments. Military coup in 1999 and has been run by a military regime. Now, in what happened in Nepal? Nepal was a constitutional monarchy with the danger of the king taking over executive powers. In 2006, a successful popular uprising led to the restoration of democracy and reduced the king to a nominal position. Next is Bhutan. What happened in Bhutan? Now, Bhutan is still a monarchy, but the king has initiated plans for its transition to multi-party democracy. Next is Maldives. The Maldives, the other island nation, was a sultanate till 1968, when it was transformed into a republic with a presidential form of government. In June 2005, the Parliament of the Maldives voted unanimously to introduce a multi-party system. The Maldivian Democratic Party dominates the political affairs of the island. That means Maldives was a sultanate earlier and then it became a democratic government. So why are all these countries moving towards democracy? Here is the answer to this question, and the answer is Why the people in all these countries share the aspiration for democracy? The same question that I told you. The answer is a recent survey of the attitudes of the people in the 5 big countries of the region showed that there is widespread support for democracy in all these countries. As you can see these survey results in your book, these clearly show that more than half of the people of other countries are in favor of democracy. Ordinary citizens, rich as well as poor and belonging to different religions, view the idea of democracy positively and support the institutions of representative democracy. Now, this is another reason that might people be rich or poor. Both of the group of people support representative democracy. They prefer democracy over any other form of democracy and think that democracy is suitable for their country. Next reason is these are significant findings, for it was earlier believed that democracy could flourish and find support only in prosperous countries of the world. But in that sense, the South Asian experience of democracy has expanded the global imagination of democracy. Now, this was the last reason. So, it is very easy to understand that earlier it was thought and it was believed that democracy could flourish only in prosperous countries. But now, as we see the example of South Asia, it is possible that poor and underdeveloped countries can also follow democracy. Now we look closely into the military and democracy in Pakistan. After Pakistan framed its first constitution, General Ayub Khan took over the administration of the country and soon got himself elected. And after that, he started a military rule. But this gave way to a military takeover once again under General Yahya Khan. During Yahya's military rule, Pakistan faced the Bangladesh crisis and after a war with India in 1971, East Pakistan broke away to emerge as an independent country called Bangladesh. After this, an elected government under the leadership of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto came into power in Pakistan from 1971 to 1977. The Bhutto government was removed by General Zia-ul-Haq in 1977, and then General Zia faced a pro-democracy movement. That means a movement which was in favor of democracy from 1982 onwards, and an elected democratic government was established once again in 1988 under the leadership of Benazir Bhutto. Next is, now the next president or next prime minister, whatever they say it, was General Pervez Musharraf. You can all read this paragraph for Pakistan, it's very easy to understand. Though the army rulers have held some elections to give their rule a democratic image, several factors have contributed to Pakistan's failure in building a stable democracy. Now, this is a very important question. So, the answer to this question is point number 1. The social dominance of the military, clergy, and the land-owning aristocracy has led to the frequent overthrow of elected governments and the establishment of military governments. Alright, this is very clear and understandable that the majority of population is military, clergy, and land-owning aristocracy. So, they don't want democracy to be overthrowing military rule. Now, the second point is Pakistan's conflict with India has made the pro-military groups more powerful. Now, as we all know that Pakistan is a true rival to our country, that is India. So, this has made a way for the pro-military groups which are against India, so that they can establish military rule in Pakistan and they could benefit by attacking on India. Now, the third point is The lack of genuine international support for democratic rule in Pakistan has further encouraged the military to continue its dominance. The last point for this answer would be, given their fear of the threat of what they call global Islamic terrorism and the apprehension that Pakistan's nuclear arsenal might fall into the hands of these terrorist groups. That is why the Pakistan government always forms a military rule. Next up is democracy in Bangladesh. Now we are going to look at Bangladesh closely, that how democracy was established in Bangladesh. Bangladesh was a very important part of Pakistan from 1947 to 1971. The domination of Western Pakistan and the imposition of the Urdu language started all the problems. They began protests against the unfair treatment meted out to the Bengali culture and language. Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman led the popular struggle against West Pakistani domination. In the 1970 elections in the then Pakistan, the Awami League led by the Mujib Khan won all the seats in East Pakistan and secured a majority in the proposed Constituent Assembly. Now these paragraphs are very easy to understand. If you read them once or either twice, you will always understand them. Next is Sheikh Mujib Khan was arrested because he was against that democracy rule, against the domination of Pakistan. Sheikh Mujib Khan was against the domination of West Pakistan. That is why he was arrested. Next up is thousands were killed by the Pakistan army. This led to a large-scale migration into India, creating a huge refugee problem for India. Now, the government of India supported the demand of the people of East Pakistan for their independence and helped them financially and militarily. This resulted in a war between India and Pakistan in December 1971. Now what happened? Bangladesh was as an independent country. Now Bangladesh drafted its constitution declaring faith in secularism, democracy and socialism. Now this paragraph you can read it by yourself. What is important here is elections were held in 1991 and since then representative democracy based on multi-party elections has been working in Bangladesh. So as we can see that Bangladesh has successfully come through from a military rule to democracy rule. Next up is monarchy and democracy in Nepal. Nepal was a Hindu kingdom in the past and then a constitutional monarchy in the modern period for many years. This is very true. And then the king accepted the demand for a new democratic constitution in 1990. What happened after that? There was a triangular conflict among the monarchist forces, the Democrats and the Maoists in the Nepal. What happened during this conflict? In 2002, the king abolished the parliament and dismissed the government, thus ending even the limited democracy that existed in Nepal. Now they had zero democracy in their country. What happened next? In April 2006, there were massive countrywide pro-democracy protests. The largely non-violent movement was led by the seven-party alliance SPA, the Maoists and social activists. So, next up is ethnic conflict and democracy in Sri Lanka. What happened in Sri Lanka? Ethnic conflict leading to the demand for succession by one of the regions. The majority Sinhala community, Tamils, who had migrated from, there were only two kinds of people in Sri Lanka. Number one, the majority Sinhala community. Number two, the Tamils who had migrated from India to Sri Lanka and settled there. Now the ethnic conflict was between these two groups of people. The Sinhala nationalists thought that Sri Lanka should not give concessions to the Tamils. because Sri Lanka belongs to the Sinhala people only. The neglect of Tamil concerns led to militant Tamil nationalism. The Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam, that is LTTE, has been fighting an armed struggle with the army of Sri Lanka and demanding Tamil Elam or a separate country for the Tamils of Sri Lanka. Now this conflict is still going on in that country, and what happened next? Considerable pressure from the Tamil people in India to the effect that the Indian government should protect the interests of Tamil. So India intervened and it created a huge problem for India. The government of India has from time to time tried to negotiate with the Sri Lankan government on the Tamil question. India signed an accord with the Sri Lanka and sent troops to stabilize relations with the Sri Lankan government and the Tamils. What happened next? In 1989, the Indian peacekeeping force pulled out of Sri Lanka without attaining its objective. Now, at the last, Sri Lanka has registered considerable economic growth and recorded high levels of human development just because of democracy. Sri Lanka was one of the first developing countries to successfully control the rate of growth of population. The first country in the region to liberalize the economy. It has had the highest per capita gross domestic product for many years right through the civil war. Despite the ravages of internal conflict, it has maintained a democratic political system. Let's fastly complete the India-Pakistan conflicts. It's very easy to understand and we all almost know about them. So the first conflict between India and Pakistan is the Kashmir issue. Kashmir and the Indian province of Jammu and Kashmir divided by the line of control. In 1971, India won a decisive war against Pakistan, but the Kashmir issue remained unsettled. Next issue between India and Pakistan is strategic issues like the control of the Siachen Glacier and the over-acquisition of arms. Another issue between India and Pakistan is both states acquiring nuclear weapons and missiles to deliver such arms against each other in the 1990s. In 1998, India conducted nuclear explosion in Pokhran, and soon after that, Pakistan responded by having nuclear tests in the Chagai Hills. Another issue between India and Pakistan is soon after the partition, the two countries got embroiled in a conflict over the fate of Kashmir. Another conflict, the 1947-48 war resulted in the division of the province into Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the Indian province of Jammu and Kashmir. Another conflict was the Indian government has blamed the Pakistan government for using a strategy of low-key violence by helping the Kashmiri militants with arms, trainings, money and protection to carry out terrorist strikes against India. Another conflict is Pakistan had aided the pro-Khalistani militants with arms and ammunition during the period 1985-1995. Another conflict is anti-India campaigns in India's northeast operating secretly through Bangladesh and Nepal. The government of Pakistan in turn blames the Indian government that its security agencies for fomenting trouble in the provinces of Sindh and Balochistan. Now another conflict is until 1960 they were locked in a fierce argument over the use of the rivers of the Indus basin. Now as you all know, NCERT is very confusing, so they have put a cooperation in between which I have marked with green and I have marked all the conflicts with red. So the cooperation in between is eventually In 1960, with the help of the World Bank, India and Pakistan signed the Indus Waters Treaty, which has survived to this day in spite of various military conflicts in which the two countries have been involved. Now, another conflict, the two countries are not in agreement over the declaration line in Sar Creek in the Run of Kutch. Now, we'll read about India and its other neighbors in the next part of the video. So stay tuned and wait for the video. I'll come soon and explain you the whole chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.